Are all events predetermined? For example, me asking you this question. Some say that our fate is in our hands. Others say that our thoughts create our reality. Others say everything is predetermined. Which is it? It's actually all of it. And it all interacts because that which is part of our karmic package coming into this life is not separate from what we're doing in this life. And so you can't really tease things apart. Meaning, the sanskaras, the impressions, in the West, in science, we call them neural networks or neuronal patterns. Here, or psychological patterns. Here we talk about them as sanskaras. We're talking really about the same thing, which is impressions in our psyche of how we're going to live. And that's all part of the karmic package. And so, for example, when they say, is it even predetermined that I'm going to ask you this question? Well, depends what you mean by pre. Is it predetermined like thousands of years ago somebody was writing and said on this and this date, this and this person's going to send a question via this means of communication called email that hasn't even been invented yet, or on social media that hasn't even been invented? No. There's no way that I know of that has been written in that way. But pre doesn't necessarily mean thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, written somewhere in a book in the ether that is talking about what you're going to do. Pre is everything up to this moment. Right? Right before you came here is pre. And so that which we've come into this world with, which has brought us into the family we're in, which has given us the sensibilities that we have, the predispositions that we have, that has put us into a very specific family situation with its very specific psychological patterns and issues. And we all have different issues because the families that we were born and raised in were different. Our parents all had different things they were struggling with, different aspects of their karmic package, of their journey as humans. We had different environmental impacts, different educational impacts. But our karmic package, going back to pre, our karmic package with which we came into this world gave us birth in a family, in a situation in which we were going to be able to take the next steps that are most conducive for our spiritual path. So predetermination is not predetermination as random puppeteering. It's not about someone pulling strings just for the sake of pulling strings. It's not creative writing with your lives. The pre part of it is that our journey to the full unfoldment, the full opening to who we are as divine beings, as soul, as spirit, as one with God, by whatever name, whatever form, however we conceive of the divine, the oneness with that, we're all going to experience it in a different way. We're all going to peel back the layers of ourselves in different reasons. If we simply even went around this room and I said, okay, here we are in satsang tonight. Something brought you here. At least half, more than half of you have come from abroad. Those of you from India, I imagine you're not from Rishikesh. Maybe one or two of you are, but you're going to have come from somewhere outside of Rishikesh. Some of you are going to be staying here at Paramarth Niketan, some may not. But something brought you into this satsang tonight. And we could literally go around the room and you could each tell a story of what it was that brought you to India, and then brought you to Rishikesh, and then brought you to Paramarth Niketan, brought you to our Ganga Arti, brought you to the satsang. All of those things are the predetermination that got you here. Not, again, because thousands of years ago somebody in the ether wrote, you are going to, miss the bus that you were going to take to Shimla, and so instead you decided to take a bus to Rishikesh. But that which is building up on the path of your life. And so our prior to this birth karmic package has given us that family, those situations, this physical body. When we say physical body, I don't just mean how tall it is or the color of its skin or eyes or hair, but remember also that the physical body includes the brain. And even born in the same family, you take two siblings in the same family. They've had the same environment, the same experience, the same culture, the same parents. They went to the same school, the same education. But they could be vastly different, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. I imagine that those of you with brothers and sisters know this. You may be in satsang, they might be out at a disco someplace, or, pulling an all-nighter on Wall Street, or, you had the same environmental impact. But you came into it with a different vessel for that. Literally, a different nervous system structure, different brain structure, due to your different karmic packages that had you interact with your world. World was the same, but you interacted with it in a completely different different way that had you take different steps. And so, yes, everything was predetermined in that way. First, our karmic package that gave us that. And then, of course, what we do with it. Because the other big piece that is given to us is what we call free will. And free will, you can think of it like clay. If you were a sculptor or you were a ceramic artist, you can use that free will for really whatever you want. And when we have intellect, when we have awareness, when we have the power of what we call discrimination, not discrimination like, oh, you're black, oh, you're white, oh, you're rich, oh, you're poor, but discrimination as in truth from falsehood. That's actually what this third eye center is for, where we put the tilak here. Why people meditate on the third eye is actually to increase the power of discrimination. Not the kind that we have laws against, but the discrimination between falsehood, which is just the eat, drink, and be merry, he who dies with the most toys wins philosophy of life, and the you are soul, you are spirit, You are one with the divine. You are here to experience that divinity and awaken truth. The ability to be able to see the difference between that. To be able to see desires, fears, intuition within us as either guiding us, taking us on a path toward falsehood, something that pulls us, bright, shiny lights, looks really good. But if we have the power of discrimination, we're able to say, no. Shiny, bright, alluring, loud, all of that. But actually not where I want to be going. Something else over here, maybe not quite as bright and shiny, but yeah, this is where I'm going to go. There's two paths that are talked about in the scriptures, the path of Shreyas and the path of Prayas. And the path of Shreyas is the path of going toward that, which is actually pure and light and for our highest good and the highest good of the planet, the highest good of creation, not just the planet. That which is in line with the truth, that we're all one, that there is no place I end and you begin, that it's all a continuum, or rather that it's all happening simultaneously, however you want to look at it, but that there really isn't a break between me and you, today and tomorrow and next year, this life, next life. And then there's the path of Prayas, which is the path of decadence or hedonism, just sort of, have fun. I've been given this body, and this body is able to feel pleasure, and so why not give it all the pleasure it can? And this body, enjoys things, so why not give it all the enjoyment that you can? And those are two different paths of life. And it's incumbent upon each of us to decide, both on a general level as well as on specific individual levels. Which way am I going to walk? And so where you are gets predetermined by which path you've chosen to walk. If I've chosen to walk a path of Prayas, if I've chosen to walk a path of decadence and, I'm just this body and that's all there is and, who cares? Then chances are I wouldn't be sitting in satsang. Maybe I'd be in a bar someplace or in a club someplace or on a beach someplace or in front of a TV someplace or, doing any one of a million things that just gives a tad bit of very, very temporary enjoyment. Or rather, that gives a tad bit of temporary reprieve from the stress I was feeling in my life. Because it's not actually that those things are that enjoyable. If we're really deeply honest, we're not actually really deeply in a state of joy. What we are is free temporarily, whether it's due to chemically making ourselves free through alcohol and drugs, or whether we've just distracted ourselves so sufficiently that we forget. But I've temporarily numbed myself from the stress and the pain that my existence otherwise creates. But the path of truth, the path of light, the path of Shreyas, is a path that says, no, wait. Actually, the stress itself, the pain itself, is due to an illusion, is due to ignorance. Instead of numbing that or distracting myself from that, because of course that's just very temporary and I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning still in the same stress, still in the same misery, but now with a hangover. Instead of that, how can I actually dispel the illusion? How can I actually bring light to the darkness? How can I actually walk that path? And so when you've committed yourself to that, you could say it's sort of predetermined that you're going to find yourself in places like yoga, meditation, satsangs, ashrams. And if you've committed yourself to the other path, you're much more likely to find yourself in places of temporary numbness or distraction. But what's really most important, because all of this question, of course, is very theoretical. This moment, how I feel about it and what I do with it, doesn't change on any deep felt sense level whether I know that I've chosen it with my free will or whether I know that it was predetermined. In either case, I'm here. In either case, something prior to this moment has determined that I'm here. And the reason that we know that is we're here. If nothing had determined that we were going to be here, we wouldn't be here. So whether it was something from lifetimes ago or whether it was something from 15 minutes ago, either way, it was this moment. But now the question becomes, okay, how do I in this moment predetermine my future? Because if you can fast forward by a few weeks and months and years, that which predetermines where you're going to be then is what you're doing right now. So rather than spending too much philosophical brain energy, going around about exactly how did I get here, the question becomes, I'm here. That I know for sure. I am here. And so now that I am here, how do I predetermine where I'm going to be next week, next month, next year? And that's in our hands. And it doesn't matter where you are right now. I mean, you all we know are in satsang. But our family that's joining us, on social media now live, or people who are seeing it later on a video. With technology, people could literally be watching this sitting in a bar. We have no idea, right? So we're talking about you're in satsang instead of in a bar, but of course there actually could be people right now in this moment joining us via the miracles of modern technology, sitting in a bar waiting for their drink. And the beauty of the spiritual path, the beauty really of divine grace is it's never too late. My guru always says, whenever you open your eyes, it's morning. Whenever you open your eyes, it's morning. And so, regardless of where you are in this moment, you can create your next moment. But that gets created by what we do right now. What path we lay for our life right now. What decisions we make right now. And of course, we don't know what the future is going to hold. So I'm not necessarily talking about a 50-year or 50 lifetime plans because you don't know. I had a life plan and then God sent me to India. And by God's grace, I was not so stuck with my life plan that I couldn't open myself to what the universe sent me. So we don't actually know. But what we can choose is we can choose what path we want to walk. We can choose what we believe in. We can choose what types of doors we want to walk through. We can choose what, on a broad level, our ultimate goals are. And so, for example, if my highest goal is just to make a lot of money, Okay? And I always say, I'm not the moral police. I'm not the spiritual police. I'm not going to tell you that that's a bad thing to do or a wrong thing to do. We all need some money to live. You need to put food on the table. You need to put a roof over your heads, over your family's heads. You need to put your kids through school. How much beyond that is enough is subjective. There's no right answer to that. What we do know, of course, is that the less I need, the more relaxed my life tends to be. The more I think I need, the more stressed my life tends to be. But my point is that you could dedicate your life to whatever you want. If you decided that making millions of dollars was absolutely your highest goal, well, then you would make choices. You would walk through doorways. And again, nothing is guaranteed, but you would walk through doorways, you would walk on paths that looked like they were the path to making a lot of money. So you would, for example, not spend a lot of extra time with your family. You would, for example, not spend a lot of time in your spiritual practice. You would spend a lot of time at the office. You would, work really late hours. You would be prepared to pretty much do whatever was required to get ahead. Again, no judgment. Just this is how you would follow a path based on your goal being to make a lot of money as your highest goal. But if your highest goal, for example, is to awaken to who you are, if your highest goal is to be the most pure, clear, useful version of you, you would choose a different path. There's a beautiful prayer by St. Francis of Assisi that begins, O Lord, make me an instrument of thy grace. An instrument of thy grace, thy mercy. Well, okay, so that's a different vision. And the prayer goes on. I don't remember the whole thing. I used to have it memorized, but it's very, very beautiful. And it says, where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is misery, joy. Where there is doubt, hope. Where there is darkness, light. It's very, very, very beautiful. So that's another life goal. Make me an instrument of thy mercy. Well, an instrument, of course, is something that's used. Right? Nobody worries about whether the instrument is made out of gold or metal. Nobody worries about whether it's covered with diamonds or not. That's ultimately irrelevant. An instrument is measured based on its utility, how well it works, how well it functions. If you've got to build a house with wood planks and nails, you need a hammer that works. If somebody hands you a hammer that's beautiful and covered with diamonds, but every time it hits a nail, the nail just bends to the side, you wouldn't want it. Because you've got to build this house. You need a hammer that's functional. And so what I love about the prayer is the choice of the word instrument. Because it really reminds us in no uncertain terms what we're talking about. Something that's useful. Something that is useful in mercy, grace, joy, pardon, light. So the goal is really asking ourselves, well, what's my highest goal here? And for some people it may be very specific. I want to be a fireman. But for most of us, chances are it's going to be somewhat vaguer in terms of how we're going to get there. but perhaps very, very specific in what it feels like. Oh God, I want to be in peace and share peace. I want to be happy and bring happiness. I want to experience the truth of who I am. But whatever that is, that's what's going to lead you to how you take your next step. So that way of thinking becomes that which predetermines where you're going to be.